Good evening, baby posters. Hello, posters. We'll be doing the Moong Dal 2 ways rewrite, which I posted today morning. I'll start with the chopping of onions. One portion of this dal will be done with the basic onion masala, and the second portion will be done with onion tomatoes, with both onions and tomatoes. So I would strongly suggest all of you go live with your rewrites. That is the best way to hone your OPOS skills. I think yesterday both Ranjita and Sudha had posted rewrites of the tomato sharba, in which a complicated 45-minute recipe was condensed to under 10 minutes. And that's what I hope will happen with these rewrites. You will understand how to de-skill and demystify complex recipes into simpler OPOS versions. You will see that almost all of them can be done in the 10 to 12 minute time frame. The black fungus can be just rubbed off. In case you are not able to rub it off, just cut it out. If your onions are too dry and if you are facing burning, you may consider either sprinkling a bit of water just to hydrate them a bit to avoid burning, or washing them in water. But if you learn onion caramelization, you don't need such tweaks. Now, you can use an inner ring of tomatoes, or you can use a whole tomato. You can use a scoop tomato. I'm going to do it in all these 3 ways to show you the difference. Let me start loading. 2 tablespoons of oil. Ensure the oil completely spread over the base. Onions on one side. A bit of cumin. This is 1/4 teaspoon of cumin. Tomatoes on one side, and the whole tomatoes. If the tomatoes are too big, you need to scoop them out. If they are small, you can just add them as it is. If tomatoes are too big, just scoop them out and add the scooped out tomato. And it doesn't matter if the green chilies do not caramelize. Now what we have is moong dal, which has been soaked for an hour or so. So I'll take a cup of soaked moong dal. You can use any small dal from the same template. That's 1 cup. Just add it over the onion layer. We'll separate the tomatoes later. Close and cook on high for 3 to 4 whistles for the onions to caramelize. Now if you're going to separate the onion part and tomato part, it makes sense to use small whole tomatoes. So the tomatoes can be taken out and mashed separately. So what happens in the initial couple of minutes is that the cumin will get fried because the pot behaves like an open pot. So in the first couple of minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, till the pressure builds up, the cumin would get fried. By this time the tomatoes will start leaking a bit of moisture, and the onions, the water from the onions will get evaporated. The onions also will get caramelized, and in 3 to 4 minutes the pressure will build up. After this, any burning or caramelization will stop because the temperature falls to around 120 degrees, which is not high enough for both caramelization or burning. And after 3 to 4 minutes, the cooking starts once the pot is pressurized, and in the next couple of minutes, the dal gets perfectly cooked. So we just need to remove the separate portions, the onion portion, the tomato portion, and the dal portion, and mix and match accordingly. The key is not to add any water, because adding any water would prevent the cumin from frying and it would prevent the onions from caramelizing. If your onions are very dry, you might consider dunking them into water before layering. If your onions are very watery, you need to do the reverse by salting and squeezing the onions to remove excess water. Let me get ready for plating. I strongly suggest you start going live, because that is possibly the best way to showcase OPOS and to assure your audience that absolutely nothing has been faked. I'll let it go for one more whistle. Switch off, you can let the pressure settle. Doesn't really matter because the dal or the onions or tomatoes won't overcook. But even now the dal will be fully cooked. So I'll release the pressure. You'll see that the dal has cooked to a mush. I will just separate the tomato portion of this. There is no caramelization actually. That's because of the chopped tomatoes and because you have added water with the onions. See? Okay, there is very slight caramelization here in the onion portion, but there is none in the portion where the tomatoes were added. Look at this. This is what you want, a bit of caramelization but no charring. So you need to learn to balance the quantities and the layering to ensure that you get this every time. I would have preferred a bit more caramelization on the onions. They look a bit boiled to me, except the ones here. So what I'll do is I'll split it into two portions, the onion portion and the tomato portion. Just mash it up a bit. Mix in a bit of water, a bit of salt, and you have a plain version. I will also mix in a bit of kasuri methi for the added flavor. So you have one version of the dal with just onions, and we'll have another version with just tomatoes. I'll add in a bit of salt for this too. You could probably have a third version, which is a mix of both. I'd strongly suggest you don't use the water added to onion hack to prevent burning, because that will lead to virtually no caramelization. As you saw here, you want some caramelization of the onions. You can easily attain it if you learn the controlled caramelization technique, or just skip it and use caramelized onions as a top layer. Here the flavor is much less intense than what I would have wanted, just because of those few drops of water. So try to avoid this, and please go live with your rewrites. Thank you very much.